The Flowering of the Strange Orchid by H.G. Wells. The buying of orchids always has in it a certain speculative flavor. You have before you the brown, shriveled lump of tissue, and for the rest you must trust your judgment or the auctioneer or your good luck as your taste may incline. The plant may be moribund or dead, or it may be just a respectable purchase, fair value for your money, or perhaps, for the thing has happened again and again, there slowly unfolds before the delighted eyes of the happy purchaser, day after day, some new variety, some novel richness, a strange twist of the labellum, or some subtler coloration of unexpected mimicry. Pride, beauty, and profit blossom together on one delicate green spike, and it may be even immortality. For the new miracle of nature may stand in need of a new specific name, and what so convenient as that of its discoverer? John Smithia. There have been worse names. It was perhaps the hope of some such happy discovery that made Winter Wedderburn such a frequent attendant at these sales. That hope, and also maybe the fact that he had nothing else of the slightest interest to do in the world. He was a shy, lonely, rather ineffectual man, provided with just enough income to keep off the spur of necessity, and not enough nervous energy to make him seek any exacting employments. He might have collected stamps or coins, or translated Horace, or bound books, or invented new species of diatoms. But as it happened, he grew orchids, and had one ambitious little hothouse. "I have a fancy," he said over his coffee, "that something is going to happen to me today." He spoke as he moved and thought slowly.
"Oh, don't say that,"
said his housekeeper, who was also his remote cousin, for something happening was a euphemism that meant only one thing to her. "You misunderstand me. I mean nothing unpleasant, though what I do mean I scarcely know. Today," he continued after a pause, "Peters are going to sell a batch of plants from the Andamans and the Indies. I shall go up and see what they have. It may be I shall buy something good unawares. That may be it." He passed his cup for a second cupful of coffee.
"Are these things collected by that poor young fellow you told me of the other day?"
asked his cousin as she filled his cup. "Yes," he said, and became meditative over a piece of toast. "Nothing ever does happen to me," he remarked presently, beginning to think aloud. "I wonder why. Things often happen to other people. There's Harvey. Only the other week, on Monday, he picked up sixpence. On Wednesday, his chicks all had the staggers. On Friday, his cousin came home from Australia, and on Saturday he broke his ankle. What a whirl of excitement compared to me."
"I think I would rather be without so much excitement,"
said his housekeeper.
"It can't be good for you."
"I suppose it's troublesome. Still, you see, nothing ever happens to me. When I was a little boy, I never had accidents. I never fell in love, and as I never grew up, never married, I wonder how it feels to have something happen to you, something really remarkable. That orchid collector was only 36, 20 years younger than myself, when he died. And he had been married twice and divorced once. He had had malarial fever 4 times, and once he broke his thigh. He killed a Malay once, and once he was wounded by a poisoned dart. And in the end he was killed by jungle leeches. It must have been all very troublesome, but then it must have been very interesting, you know, except perhaps the leeches."
"I'm sure it was not good for him,"
said the lady with conviction. "Perhaps not." And then Wedderburn looked at his watch. 23 minutes past 8. I'm going up by the 11:45 train, so that there is plenty of time. I think I shall wear my alpaca jacket. It is quite warm enough. And my gray felt hat and brown shoes, I suppose." He glanced out of the window at the serene sky and sunlit garden, and then nervously at his cousin's face.
"I think you had better take an umbrella if you're going to London,"
she said in a voice that admitted of no denial.
"There's all between here and the station coming back."
When he returned, he was in a state of mild excitement. He had made a purchase. It was rare that he could make up his mind quickly enough to buy, but this time he had done so. "These are Vandas," he said, "and a dendrobe and some Paleonopsis." He surveyed his purchases lovingly as he consumed his soup. They were laid out on the spotless tablecloth before him, and he was telling his cousin all about them as he slowly meandered through his dinner. It was his custom to live all his visits to London over again in the evening for her and his own entertainment. "I knew something would happen today, and I have bought all of these. Some of them I feel sure, do you know, that some of them will be remarkable. I don't know how it is, but I feel just as sure as if someone had told me that some of these will turn out remarkable. That one," he pointed to a shriveled rhizome, "was not identified. It may be a Paleonopsis, or it may not. It may be a new species, or even a new genus. And it was the last that poor Batten ever collected."
"I don't like the look of it,"
said his housekeeper.
"It's such an ugly shape."
"To me it scarcely seems to have a shape,"
"I don't like those things that stick out,"
said his housekeeper. "It shall be put away in a pot tomorrow,"
"It looks,"
said the housekeeper,
"like a spider shamming dead."
Wedderburn smiled and surveyed the root with his head on one side. "It certainly is not a pretty lump of stuff, but you can never judge of these things from their dry appearance. It may turn out to be a very beautiful orchid indeed. How busy I shall be tomorrow! I must see tonight just exactly what to do with these things, and tomorrow I shall set to work." "They found poor Batten lying dead or dying in a mangrove swamp. I forget which," he began again presently, "with one of these very orchids crushed up under his body. He had been unwell for some days with some kind of native fever, and I suppose he fainted. These mangrove swamps are very unwholesome. Every drop of blood, they say, was taken out of him by the jungle leeches. It may be that very plant that cost him his life to obtain."
"I think none the better of it for that."
"Men must work, though women may weep," said Wedderburn with profound gravity.
"Fancy dying away from every comfort in a nasty swamp. Fancy being ill of fever with nothing to take but chlorodyne and quinine. If men were left to themselves, they would live on chlorodyne and quinine, and no one round but your horrible natives. They say the Andaman Islanders are most disgusting wretches, and anyhow, they can scarcely make good nurses, not having the necessary training, and just for people in England to have orchids."
"I don't suppose it was comfortable, but some men seem to enjoy that kind of thing," said Wedderburn. "Anyhow, the natives of his party were sufficiently civilized to take care of all of his collection until his colleague, who was an ornithologist, came back again from the interior, though they could not tell the species of the orchid and had let it wither. And it makes these things more interesting."
"It makes them disgusting. I should be afraid of some of the malaria clinging to them. And just think, there has been a dead body lying across that ugly thing. I never thought of that before. There, I declare I cannot eat another mouthful of dinner."
"I will take them off the table if you like, and put them in the window seat. I can see them just as well there." The next few days he was indeed singularly busy in his steamy little hothouse, fussing about with charcoal, lumps of teak, moss, and all the other mysteries of the orchid cultivator. He considered he was having a wonderfully eventful time. In the evening he would talk about these new orchids to his friends over and over, and over and over again. He reverted to his expectation of something strange. Several of the Vandas and Dendrobium died under his care, but presently the strange orchid began to show signs of life. He was delighted and took his housekeeper right away from jam making to see it at once, directly he made the discovery. "That is a bud," he said, "and presently there will be lots of leaves there, and those little things coming out, here are aerial rootlets."
They look to me like little white fingers poking out of the brown,
said his housekeeper.
I don't like them.
Why not?
I don't know. They look like fingers trying to get at you. I can't help my likes and dislikes.
I don't know for certain, but I don't think there are any orchids I know that have aerial rootlets quite like that. It may be my fancy, of course. You see, they are a little flattened at the ends,
I don't like 'em.
said his housekeeper, suddenly shivering and turning away.
I know it's very silly of me, and I'm very sorry, particularly as you like the thing so much, but I can't help thinking of that corpse.
But it may not be that particular plant. That was merely a guess of mine. His housekeeper shrugged her shoulders.
Anyhow, I don't like it,
she said. Wedderburn felt a little hurt at her dislike to the plant, but that did not prevent his talking to her about orchids generally, and this orchid in particular, whenever he felt inclined. There are such queer things about orchids, he said one day, such possibilities of surprises. You know, Darwin studied their fertilization and showed that the whole structure of an ordinary orchid flower was contrived in order that moths might carry the pollen from plant to plant. Well, it seems that there are a lot of orchids known, the flower of which cannot possibly be used for fertilization in that way. Some of the cypradiums, for instance, there are no insects known that can possibly fertilize them, and some of them have never been found with seed.
But how do they form new plants?
By runners and tubers, and that kind of outgrowth. That is easily explained. The puzzle is, what are the flowers for? Very likely, he added, my orchid may be something extraordinary in that way. If so, I shall study it. I have often thought of making researches as Darwin did, but hitherto I have not found time, or something else has happened to prevent it. The leaves are beginning to unfold now. I do wish you would come and see them. But she said that the orchid house was so hot it gave her a headache. She had seen the plant once, and the aerial rootlets, which were now some of them more than a foot long, had unfortunately reminded her of tentacles reaching out after something, and they got into her dreams, growing after her with incredible rapidity, so that she had settled to her entire satisfaction that she would not see that plant again. And Wedderburn had to admire its leaves alone. They were of the ordinary broad form, and a deep glossy green, with splashes of dots of deep red toward the base. He knew of no other leaves quite like them. The plant was placed on a low bench near the thermometer, and close by was a simple arrangement by which a tap dripped on the hot water pipes and kept the air steamy. And he spent his afternoons now with some regularity meditating on the approaching flowering of the strange plant. And at last the great thing happened. Directly he entered the little glass house, he knew that the spike had burst out, although his great Phalaenopsis loei hid the corner where his new darling stood. There was a new odor in the air, a rich, intensely sweet scent that overpowered every other in that crowded, steaming little greenhouse. Directly he noticed this, he hurried down to the strange orchid, and behold, the trailing green spikes bore now 3 great splashes of blossom, from which this overpowering sweetness proceeded. He stopped before them in an ecstasy of admiration.
The flowers were white, with streaks of golden orange upon the petals. The heavy labellum was coiled into an intricate projection, and a wonderful bluish purple mingled there with the gold. He could see at once that the genius was altogether a new one, and the insufferable scent, how hot the place was! The blossom swam before his eyes. He would see if the temperature was right. He made a step towards the thermometer. Suddenly everything appeared unsteady. The bricks on the floor were dancing up and down. The white blossoms, the green leaves behind them, the whole greenhouse seemed to sweep sideways, and then in a curve upward. At 4:30 his cousin made the tea, according to their invariable custom, but Wedderburn did not come for his tea. He is worshipping that horrid orchid, she told herself, and waited 10 minutes. His watch must have stopped. I will go and call him. She went straight to the hothouse, and opening the door, called his name. There was no reply. She noticed that the air was very close and loaded with an intense perfume. Then she saw something lying on the bricks between the hot water pipes. For a minute, perhaps, she stood motionless. He was lying face upward at the foot of the strange orchid, the tentacle-like aerial roots no longer swaying freely in the air, but were crowded together, a tangle of gray ropes, and stretched tight with their ends closely applied to his chin and neck and hands. She did not understand. Then she saw from one of the exultant tentacles upon his cheek there trickled a little thread of blood. With an inarticulate cry, she ran towards him and tried to pull him away from the leech-like suckers. She snapped two of these tentacles, and their sap dripped red. Then the overpowering scent of the blossom began to make her head reel. How they clung to him! She tore at the tough ropes, and he, the white inflorescence, swam about her. She felt she was fainting, knew she must not. She left him and hastily opened the nearest door, and after she had panted for a moment in the fresh air, she had a brilliant inspiration. She caught up a flower pot and smashed in the windows at the end of the greenhouse. Then she re-entered. She tugged now with renewed strength at Wedderburn's motionless body, and brought the strange orchid crashing to the floor. It still clung with the grimmest tenacity to its victim. In a frenzy, she lugged it and him into the open air. Then she thought of tearing through the sucker rootlet one by one, and in another minute she released him and was dragging him away from the horror. He was white and bleeding from a dozen circular patches. The odd-job man was coming up the garden, amazed at the smashing of glass, and saw her emerge, hauling the inanimate body with red-stained hands. For a moment he thought impossible things. "Bring some water!" she cried, and her voice dispelled his fancies. When with unnatural alacrity he returned with the water, he found her weeping with excitement, and with Wedderburn's head upon her knee, wiping the blood from his face.
"What's the matter?"
said Wedderburn, opening his eyes feebly and closing them again at once. "Go and tell Annie to come out here to me, and then go for Dr. Haddon at once," she said to the odd-job man, so soon as he had brought the water, and added, seeing he hesitated, "I will tell you all about it when you come back." Presently Wedderburn opened his eyes again, and seeing that he was troubled by the puzzle of his position, she explained to him, "You fainted in the hothouse."
"In the orchid?"
"I will see to that," she said. Wedderburn had lost a good deal of blood, but beyond that he had suffered no very great injury. They gave him brandy, mixed with some pink extract of meat, and carried him upstairs to bed. His housekeeper told her incredible story in fragments to Dr. Haddon. "Come to the orchid house and see," she said. The cold outer air was blowing in through the open door, and the sickly perfume was almost dispelled. Most of the torn aerial rootlets lay already withered amidst a number of dark stains upon the bricks. The stem of the inflorescence was broken by the fall of the plant, and the flowers were growing limp and brown at the edges of the petals. The doctor stooped towards it, then saw that one of the aerial rootlets still stirred feebly and hesitated. The next morning the strange orchid still lay there, black now and putrescent. The door banged intermittently in the morning breeze, and all the array of Wedderburn's orchids was shriveled and prostrate. But Wedderburn himself was bright and glorious upstairs in the glory of his strange adventure. The end.
Yeah. Find my notes.
So careful what you wish for.
So the flowering of the strange orchid is number 28 in my H.G. Wells series. And it was first published in a magazine called the Pall Mall Budget on August 2nd, 1894. It was first included in his collection The Stolen Bacillus and Other Incidents, which was published in the 1890s. I believe that was his first short story collection.
Okay.
And it was reprinted in Amazing Stories in March 1928, as well as having been reprinted in lots of H.G. Wells collections since then.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I actually printed off what we read from the internet. You can go out and just Google the title of the story, and you can come up with any number of copies of it, because this is public domain, which is why we were able to read the whole story on the video.
Right.
It is free of copyright. It's one of the very first short stories by Wells I ever read. I read it in a library book. It was an edition published by Dover Books, 28 science fiction stories by H.G. Wells, that I checked out from their Scene Public Library. After I had read a number of his novels and was just totally into H.G. Wells, I came across this big, thick collection, and, that was like finding heaven.
Nice.
And so I checked that out and took it home and read through it. Excellent, excellent book. Yeah, I'm really sad that Dover doesn't still publish that specific volume, because it was they published it in hardcover. It was a really nice volume.
You hear that, Dover?
Yeah.
Special request.
Yeah, but any number of other books have this story in it, so it's real easy to find it. Including I've got a trade paperback of the complete short stories of H.G. Wells.
Very cool.
It's really nice. It is the most complete collection of H.G. Wells' shorter works. There's just one story that they discovered after it was published.
Oh no!
And that's in you have to get a copy of the Strand magazine to read that one.
All right.
So, yeah, what did you think? What are your thoughts?
I liked it.
Okay.
So first of all, orchids are actually my favorite flower. Okay. I have gone to orchid shows, which have debuted some as of, a couple years ago. Wasn't the last one I went, but they had debuted some orchids that had never been seen before. It was the first of its own hybrid. So I've been to orchid shows. I would have orchids in my own home if I did not have so many cats who like to eat plants. And unfortunately, orchids are extremely toxic to cats, so it's best not to mess with that. But I not only like orchids, but I really am fascinated by the concept of carnivorous plants. I was literally just talking with a friend the other day. Like, we both have very different... Like, I was raised in a Christian home, so, but I kind of have developed a belief that there could be a combination of evolutionary process as well as divine creation or, divine selection, intervention of some kind. Intelligent design, I should say. But the more I think about the evolutionary processes that would have had to produce a carnivorous plant, the more I'm like, that's one of those things that really I have a hard time wrapping my head around. And the intelligent design thing starts making a little more sense to me. But that's just me personally. And so I just find it as a concept very interesting. Also, you're smashing up two of my favorite plant types, honestly, in this story. I also do kind of like that the character who is the orchid grower and collector, they are that eccentric. They are so hardcore into plants, and especially if you have something that's never been seen before or was found in the deep dark depths of certain places and stuff, they are hardcore about their botany surrounding orchids. So it was kind of fun to see that personality in this story, because that's pretty legit, actually. People are very passionate, especially about orchids. It is one of the particular plants that people get really excited about. They have a great fandom. But yeah, it's just, I liked it because it was this great combination of realism with that character, but also that combination of two of my favorite plant types, which are orchids and then the carnivorous plant. And just mashing it together, you just made me the inspiration for Little Shop of Horrors, essentially. Yeah. And it's fantastic, and I love that. So I really enjoyed it, and I enjoy his eccentricity a lot. But I also, it's very true, when you're in botany especially, your life is kind of boring. You are very you have to be so attentive to your plants. You're
Mm-hmm.
You don't go anywhere, do anything. It's like farmers. You're so involved with farming,
It's
and
like collecting books.
yeah, like you're just so involved with it. Leaving and going and doing stuff outside of that where you can have adventures it's very true. You end up just dedicating your life to your greenhouse
Mm-hmm.
or your farm or anything that involves agriculture or plants in some way. So in like people who do mycology and grow mushrooms, like that's another one. They need a very particular kind of setup in a lot of cases depending on what variety, and you need to be attentive to that. Or people who bring their sourdough starter on vacations with them if they're really into baking because it needs attention, or their kombucha starter. Like those things need a lot of time and energy. So it's kind of fun to see that included as well, where it's like, yeah, nothing ever happens to me, but it's because he never really goes anywhere except to London to get orchids.
Yeah. For me, this was one of the very first short stories I read. Not the first, but the concept of a short story, I really had no knowledge of it before I discovered H.G. Wells' short stories and stories like The Crystal Egg and this one, In the Avu Observatory. And they blew me away. So my concept of what makes a short story great is based on
what you're
in H.G. Wells. And in my opinion, this story, a lot of times with a short story, you're left wanting more. A writer will give you a glimpse of the world, and you're like, wait a minute, I want to know more about this world. Give me more. Or it'll feel like it cuts off without a proper ending or whatever. And that's writers who really don't know how to write a good short story. H.G. Wells is a brilliant short story writer, and this short story, I think, is a perfect example of what a short story should be. Because it gives you everything you need, nothing you don't need. It's very economical to keep it short, but it tells the whole story.
Yeah.
It
and
gives
you get
you
good characterization too.
Yeah.
Understanding the relationship between the two characters, understanding his lifestyle as a orchid grower and botanist, understanding her lifestyle as the housekeeper, and her how pragmatic she is, and that kind of thing. Like the dynamic is perfect.
And he does a lot of good foreshadowing with the botanist that found it dying supposedly of jungle leeches. Well, no, it was the plant that killed him. We figured that out in the end, but it's kind of foreshadowed that the botanist died, so there's something creepy about this. And then the housekeeper talking about how it looks like some kind of weird spider or something. And he builds, he doesn't do the kind of wordsmithing like Poe or Lovecraft did, but Wells did choose his words right.
Yes.
His stories were straightforward, and yet his descriptions, if he was writing a creepy story, the descriptions were creepy enough. You had that foreshadowing, you had a sense of something bad going to happen. And then it does. This one ends a little bit on a light note with the guy surviving, but the descriptions of how he's got all these suckers on him and stuff are just really, really well done.
Yeah.
For the day. I mean, he doesn't get too gross like people
it's
today
not
would.
super graphic or anything.
But it's
graphic enough.
It's the Victorian age,
Women get frightened and die in the Victorian age. They got yelled at too loudly and they die. So you can't just willy-nilly have gross things.
Talk about internal organs being pulled out.
Disembowelments just not allowed.
All you can do is talk about a little bit of blood on the floor, and he did that. He went there. He described that, and so you do get this sense. And if you've ever seen a Venus flytrap, they are damn creepy.
They are.
Sure, they only eat bugs, but they eat bugs.
And they have jaws. Again, the evolutionary process that would need to happen in order to cause that. Like what flower one day was like, I'm gonna have jaws and teeth. Or I'm gonna become a pitcher, but when things crawl inside me, they get stuck and they never come out now.
I had this vision of this plant getting so pissed off at all the bugs that it just grew something to kill them with.
I know, right? Like, and how did it know? What in its DNA taught it to eventually grow jaws and teeth.
Right.
You know, like that to me is so fascinating of an idea.
Mm-hmm.
And like there are some things too, like snapdragons closing on stuff. Like that concept is not foreign to a plant per se.
Yeah.
But to have that extra step of the jaw like spines on it, like thistle almost. Just the combination of things that would have had to happen in order to make a carnivorous plant is such a fascinating idea.
Yeah. And somebody out there tell me if I'm wrong, but I cannot think of any earlier plant horror stories than this one.
Yeah, I don't know.
This was 1894. If I'm wrong, put in the comments. I'd like to know about any others like this. But otherwise, I think, H.G. Wells did study biology. And so this was a familiar subject to him. And he took, what he was familiar with, what he knew. He probably knew some orchid geeks. And conceived of this story because some orchids can look pretty weird.
Yeah, and there are some plants even funguses, like fungi. Like there's that, why can't I think of its name now? Like a fungi that basically they call it the zombie fungi.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, where like these completely basically gutted bodies of these bugs, but this fungus has like control of the brain and is still making this body operate so it can transport itself and move around. Like that's just crazy to me.
Yeah.
And these are like, and that's what I think I like about the orchid specifically, because the orchid is such an alien looking flower compared to other flowers that we're familiar with. And of course back then the Amazon jungles and jungles in and of themselves had not been explored well enough for us to have a full idea. And even today, we're exploring jungles and finding hundreds of new species all the time of any number of creatures, plants, everything. So it's not beyond comprehension that an orchid could become a carnivorous plant. Like it seems like a very plausible story, but interesting that it would be a blood-sucking plant and not just something that, because of the way it's shaped, it could just become a cage and get bugs or something.
It could.
And to go after such large prey as like people and other mammals is interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
But insects do that. They suck on blood.
That's true.
So why couldn't a flower?
Yeah. And I mean, if a flower's already carnivorous, there's got to be something it knows
If it's in the
wants.
jungle, there's plenty of mammals around that it can latch itself onto, or fish, or whatever. So, obviously, such a plant doesn't exist such an orchid doesn't exist that we know of, but it's not totally outside the realm of possibility for you to, and that was something, Wells did that in a number of stories, like the crystal egg and the magic shop, where he had people go into these weird local shops owned by these old proprietors and discover something that is totally out of this world. Like the crystal egg was some kind of communication device with Mars. The magic shop, the proprietor, turned out to be some kind of weird creature.
Yeah.
And he loved to play with that idea of walking into these old antique shops and finding something that was just so totally mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And unexpected.
I just don't want it turning... I mean, I want something cool from an antique shop, but I don't want it turning my whole life upside down.
No, but it would be cool if you found like a crystal that allowed you to read minds or something.
Yeah, that would be cool. Something useful, like reading minds or like being able to speak or understand any language. That would be cool.
Or go to a garage sale.
Do like a superpower.
Find some weird thing that connects you up to some interdimensional portal.
Yeah, you suddenly can just like transport through a wormhole and go visit Mars or something, or whatever. That would be cool. Some distant world.
So he Wells played with those ideas, and he played with concepts that were familiar to his scientific understanding to create these cool horror stories. Because this is not so much a science fiction story as it is a horror story. Let's face it. It is, even though it doesn't get creepy by today's standards, by 1894 standards, it was really creepy. And I remember when I read it when I was 12 years old, it did creep me out a lot.
You don't know if a plant can just...
Yeah. It's like walking through the forest now. You think twice about brushing up against that plant over there.
Yeah. It's going to come and snap at me.
When I go to state parks, I stay in the middle of the trail.
Yep.
Don't go near those things.
You don't want to miss.
You never know what's out there.
And here I'm just scared of poison ivy. I just don't want to deal with that. It's uncomfy.
It makes you itch.
Yeah.
Big deal.
But I mean, I don't like being itchy.
Yeah.
Not all over my whole body. Well, my dad is allergic to poison ivy, so he doesn't just get it in the patch where he is touched. It goes through his system and goes through his whole body. So I expect something like that with my genetics to start. Yeah. I've never gotten poison ivy, thankfully, or stinging nettles either. So I've been really careful most of my life, but I am horrified of encountering those in case the same thing happens to me, because that sounds awful.
Yeah.
So I'd rather not. So this is a top tale for me.
Oh,
I like
definitely.
This one.
I think this is
a good one.
Like I say, I think this is a great short story. I think this is for anybody out there who's a writer, study this story. Study what Wells has done here. It's simple, but it's perfect for what this story needs to be.
Yeah.
It is everything it needs to be and nothing that it doesn't need to be. And it is the perfect example of how to do a short story really well.
Yep. Agreed.
So definitely a top tale, and I wanted to read it on video to get her to actually read it instead of saying, "Oh, I forgot."
Don't make fun of my accent, please. It's been a while since I've had to do a British accent or listen to British.
Well, you'll notice I didn't.
I used to watch BBC or BritBox with my parents all the time, and it's been a minute. So, okay, make fun of my British accent. I don't care.
I didn't.
Peter, if you're watching this, and I know you are because you're British, make fun of my accent.
We'll look forward to that in the comments.
Have fun with that.
With that,
I'm American.
Immediately after this, like 1 week later, Wells published In the Avu Observatory, which is another amazing short story by him. So
wonderful.
that will be my next H.G. Wells video review coming up. So leave your comments in the comments section. Come on back for In the Avu Observatory and everything after that about H.G. Wells that we're going to be covering. And there will be a lot yet because it's only 1894 still.
Got a long way to go.
And on your way out of this video, don't forget the like button and the subscribe button. Helps us, helps you.
Thanks, guys, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.